Hello everybody and welcome to On the Couch with Hannah. Today we have my friend who is anonymous and we're going to be talking about climate change in Western Sydney because that's what we have to actually talk about. So friend of mine,
Yes.
Stop looking at the prompts.
I can look at the Catholic in here instead.
Oh no. Okay. How do you think, person who lives in southwest Sydney, climate change is going to affect the people living here in the next 20 or 30 years?
I think it's going to affect, really everyone in Western Sydney, if not Australia, but in our areas of Western Sydney especially, we are constantly expanding without real thought for the conservation of our land around us. We are building lots of new areas that have identical housing without any nature strips, without any real lawns to help defend against climate change in a way.
So you're talking about the green cover and the
Yes.
fact that that's like being minimised.
We're
with all the
reducing
suburbs.
it more and more in all our suburbs, and every new one being built has basically none. They are just large black reflective areas of asphalt, which is not helpful. It only increases the heat they're feeling further. Given that, and then you have families that are going to be looking at air conditioners and fans running further more often. It just then repeats itself in a cycle of heavier carbon emissions coming out from
Cool, getting
local
all of the
governments.
good answers out straight
Yeah.
at the start, so
Yeah.
I have nothing else to ask you. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming.
No
Um,
worries.
So, you said not quite sure how it compares to the rest of Australia. Are you thinking because of the boom that's happening in Sydney, there are other parts of Australia that aren't going to be as affected?
In a way, yeah, because we're bordering within Sydney still, we're getting a lot of suburbs that are still, we're trying to keep within Western Sydney or inner Sydney areas. We're not looking to move into more rural areas to start development on proper suburbs. We're still looking for, we need a new suburb that's within 40 minutes driving distance to Sydney without thought of how that's actually impacting the rest of us that are already here, both in a climate change way and then overpopulation, which again furthers climate change when you have thousands of cars bumper to bumper on the M5 because it hasn't been built with the infrastructure for how many people we have now traveling between each intersection.
Okay, so what are some of the immediate things that you have noticed yourself that have happened in the last 10 years or so?
Honestly, Australia, or our Western Sydney again, has always had a lot of odd seasons, as you would say, where it might be winter, but we still get a week where it's 30 degrees or so. But as I've gotten older from living here, I'm finding we're getting extended periods of these strange seasons within seasons, where we were in summer and we had weeks and weeks of just heavy rain that would then be broken up by a 40-degree day. I don't remember those occurring as much as a child, but I may have just been carefree.
Those were the days.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you think climate change and adapting to those changes since your childhood to adulthood are affecting your life and the lives of the general community?
I mean,
Like,
we've
work, living
advanced
conditions.
in our living conditions by, having access to air conditioning and internet, being able to stay inside more for various reasons. So on those extreme days, we don't have to leave the house, but at the same time, that then conditions us a little bit to expect that the cold temperature or be in control of the temperature. So on those hot days, instead of spending all your time out there and acclimatizing, you've been inside on a 24-degree air conditioned room, and then you leave and you're like, oh, this is so hot. But that's an extreme reaction because my living condition has changed from what it was when I was a kid. Instead of just accepting having a window open and a fan and that's the best I'm getting, I can just stuff my face in a cold air.
Yeah. You should try living here. I don't have aircon.
Yes, well.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Thanks, chat. Are there any national or global trends that you think we should be taking into consideration when it comes to like dealing with climate change, global warming?
I'm not too aware myself of global initiatives that are going on outside of things like Earth Day or Clean Up Australia Day. That's not global, that's obviously in Australia. I think initiatives like that are great, and so are beach cleanups or other, community-driven events. But I think a lot of it really, the community can only do so much when you have much larger businesses or corporations that their emissions are just as bad. We have somewhere like Ingleburn that's all industrial, really, so you can feel a bit of a difference when you're in there, both from no green cover. It's all just metal warehousing. You can feel heat radiate off them, and the asphalt. It's not pleasant.
Yeah,
let alone like all the smoke, steam, and all the machines that are running in there.
It is one of those things that surprises you. I've recently started riding motorbikes everywhere, and going from one suburb to another, you come over a rise and suddenly everything's 2 degrees hotter where you're coming into Campbelltown usually.
You vastly notice a difference going in between some suburbs. I mean, I'm lucky mine still has green cover for the most part.
Yeah, one of the older suburbs that were developed. I'm just going to jump back to, you said dealing with things like extremely hot days and whatnot, you think there's been a rise in that and changed weather patterns since when we were kids. Have there been any like extreme weather events that you have lived through that have personally affected you, like the 2019 fires or flooding, anything like that? That's
nothing to the extreme degrees that we've had in other parts of Australia. We did have some heavy flash flooding after the 2019 fires, and that, I mean, we survived, we were fine. I'm lucky to be on top of a hill, essentially. But I did get trapped in my car for about 6 hours because I could not get home. All the roads were flooded, everything was cut off. I almost lost my car in the flood because
So that's actually a yes, you have been personally
I now see, yes. When you connect the dots from the flash flooding to the
I haven't been personally infected.
Except for this one big example of it.
Yeah, I got caught in my car for this amount of time. Almost got taken out.
Yeah.
That wasn't you personally. Yeah, sorry. No coaching the.
It was a friend of a friend.
Yeah. You're a friend of a friend.
That was the joke.
What do you think local governments, talking about all of the expanding suburbs that are happening in all the developments, what do you think the local governments should be addressing in order to combat the challenges that come up with climate change?
Probably a decisive or unpopular opinion potentially is when it comes to civil planning for suburbs, new or old. I think a lot of our governments need to re-look into revegetation or starting to really bring growth to our natural flora and fauna again. And it's difficult because, again, a lot of the newer suburbs that are being built, or even the old suburbs, are being rezoned so that you can fit more houses together so more people can live there. In theory, great, but having an actual backyard where you can have your own little tree for shade, or have your own things in the yard for your privacy, have shade over your house, instead of being a meter either side of your house to another house that doesn't provide you any shade. It makes a large difference, I think, to your way of living.
Yeah.
You are not locked in your house where it's my house, go to work, what have you. It's just a simple thing. You now have a proper backyard that you're able to go out without electricity on. You can feel a breeze if there is one out there, or at least you have some shade, and that can still help the house itself and cooling down.
So shifting just slightly, those things like making sure that the developments enabling families and households to not just rely on electricity driven heating and cooling, that sort of stuff. Do you think there's a component of mental health that comes along with the degradation of the climate?
Absolutely. I mean, I think whilst not climate change, we all saw the potential of what could be happening back in 2020 when we had COVID and we couldn't leave the house. If climate change continues on such a awful level, you know, if we raise water levels up another 2 degrees or what have you, and suddenly our average temperatures in Australia go up into the 38s as a normal spring day, and then you have summers that are now, it's a normal 47 day, you'll be locked in your house. You won't be able to go out. Like, we'll adapt, we'll have other technology to help us around, but essentially, yeah,
we're looked in from
get
the outside.
further and further isolated from each other, and that would play really heavily on people.
How do you think that individuals can actually have an impact on this, especially in our area here?
Honest answer, I don't. But that is the cynic in me. I think looking out to local initiatives, or if your council has anything open for either volunteering or being a part of local council chambers so that your voice can be heard, if there's any agenda items that might match something that you feel passionate about, I think things like that could be very helpful, but I'll leave it at that.
I have to fact check this, but I think it's something like 30% of landfill at the moment is actually food wastage, so stuff that can be composted. So do you think that individuals doing stuff like composting, recycling properly to minimize that kind of
I think it would
is...
help, and I think it could help people become more self-reliant, but I think that can also play into how houses or land is built upon. If you have enough space in a backyard that you can build a self-sustaining fruit and vegetable garden, or even have a compost area just in general for a flower bed, you know, that's the difference of having space for that, or do I want to do compost in my bathroom because it's already a smelly room? Not really, because what am I going to do with it? Like, you need...
Comes down to the individual resources. If I don't have the capacity or finances, whatever, to be able to do it, it falls by the wayside.
But then if that is the standard of living or standard of housing that is out there now, so you are looking to purchase a house and they get to tell you all the great things. You can do composting. It comes with this, it has a compost bin ready for you. Here is how it is done if you were to buy the house, you know. Not an instruction manual for houses, but like being able to introduce more people to that in the long run would be helpful.
The new developments that are coming in, governments, local, nationwide, whatever, an initiative where they're giving like grants or subsidies to the developers to be able to include things that are global warming conscious or climate conscious.
Which I guess they have been doing through solar panel rebates and everything, which is actually really good. That's another initiative I think local people could take, is more people moving on to solar. I'd completely forgotten about that.
I haven't seen that personally.
For the rebates?
I haven't seen the local community, because I am lucky enough to be up on a hill. I can actually literally see who is getting solar put in and not. I don't think a huge amount of us are doing it.
I'm seeing
it would be good.
My area a lot more and more.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Your area is better than my area.
I think it's because Green Valley. A lot of buildings have been rebuilt, or some homes have had like second stories built on top and stuff, and so they've thrown solar panels on there. I think probably like 5 out of the dozen homes on my street have it, which is pretty decent, I think.
Okay.
Not ours.
This is one of those. This is one of those changes and initiatives that the government's actually getting right, is trying to get the solar.
I think so. I've gotten letters a few times and messages about it.
If only you guys owned your house and could do that, hey? I know. Okay, are you optimistic or pessimistic for the state of Western Sydney itself in the face of climate change?
I mean, I'm a pessimistic person in general.
Compare it with Australia.
To the whole of Australia, I would say probably fairly pessimistic, to be honest, but that is not due to the people that live here. That is purely due to our government, and how we have our local governments and they go up through to the nationals and state levels. But at a state level, it often feels like there is a lot of, what is the word for it? They have preferred councils and suburbs that they want to look after. And I don't think Western Sydney is one of them.
Yeah.
That is a polite-ish way of saying it.
Yes. We'll allow the base level of all of the development to happen out there, and we'll look after other
Yeah, we'll look after
areas.
the northern beaches.
Yeah, yeah. We'll all sweat down here together, hey?
Yeah.
I think that's about what we need to go through.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I think I'm not. And I think we've got a good amount of time. Thanks for that.
that's all right. Happy
Easy
to help.
done. On the couch with Hannah. We know nothing about climate change, but we're learning.
Yeah.